Hello everyone! Welcome back to Let's Play Great Ace Attorney. In our last episode, we took up the trial of Magnus McGilded, and we immediately got backed into a corner by our prosecution rival, Barak von Zieks. Oh boy. And now it's time for us to do our first summation examination. It's just something new for this series. I'd honestly have thought that this would be in some of the Apollo Justice games. So be it then. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant, Magnus McGilded, guilty of this most serious crimes. I did not seriously mean to call him Magnus McGilty. Oops. Oh boy. Alrighty. Judicial findings. The jurors' contentions. There's no one else and saw the carriage at the time. It has to have been him. What is that? Elastic flower? I trust the driver. He's an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers, with fares totaling 20 pence. He stuck the chap next to him, just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. You like that knife way the hell too much. That is a safety hazard waiting to happen. I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn a logical conclusion. You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised prices above 4 pence for years. 4 pence? 20? Hang on, your math is off. This scoundrel stabbing the poor man on the floor. It beggars belief. It beggars belief. I've forgotten my accent for her. I've already seen 2 contradictions there. I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they? Well, let's see what we can do. We need to get these 6 people to change their mind. I have to throw everything I can at them and use some very persuasive language. Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works. Oh? I thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about the defendant. Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything the defense says. But then, they've reached their conclusions by their own reasoning, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they become. What else am I supposed to do? Oh dear. I'm just citing what I've read about the British law, Mr. Naruhodo. Right, I'm sorry. You have any idea how to make this work, then? Well, from what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments. What do you mean? Well, the 6 members of the juries are randomly selected members of the public, and one scary guy with a knife. They may appear to present a united front, but the truth is, they're complete strangers who just happen to find themselves in the courtroom together. Like most juries. And that's the way to break them down, you mean? Yes, exactly. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can then contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against each other. So it's contradictions in what 2 or more of juries say that we're looking for. In a way then, this is similar to a regular cross-examination. Oh yes, I suppose you're right. Find contradictions in their statements and pit the juries against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. No, that's not right. Ow! Ouch! I have to pull this off. Can we start proceedings, counsel? I would ask you to take the stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal. Yes, my lord. Jury examination. Alrighty. Defense's rebuttal. Alright, so we have... Let's see, there. You trust the guild. Fast is our motto. We haven't raised our prices above 4 pence for years. There. Two statements clearly contradict each other. They do! Explain yourself, Council. Me? Oh dear. What have I just said? I swear on the Silver Blaze's name and mate, I haven't the first idea what you're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question. And according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right. I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. Like it is. A fair and convenient single price. Just the way Londoners' carriages should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, man? Why? 4 passengers paying 4 pence each. If you do the multiplication, it would be 16 pence. Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are different. By 4 pence, in fact, or precisely 1 person's fare. 1 person's fare? Yes. In other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there was another passenger we had heard nothing about. Good gracious! This can't be right. The coachman of the guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword. The figures your coachman claims most certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy. I beg your pardon. Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus. Alright then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end, Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire into the innocent side of the set of scales. Now hold your horses there, coachman. We were all in agreement. Why have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo! Alright, there's one of them. This is all very irritating. Begging your pardon, sir. I'm going to do the same. For the love of Mike! Not you as well! A penny can be the difference between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters. Oh, really? I, for one, think it's only proper we hear from the witnesses again. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo, you did it! If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue. 2 more. Actually, there is something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions. That's where you must strike next. So I need to pick 2 more jurors against each other, and there's another contradiction in their assertions. Exactly. You can do it. Well, the scales of justice have shifted, but they still weigh heavy on the side of the guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with your summation examination. I'm changing my leaning to innocent. I should like to hear what the slipshod bookkeeper has to say for himself. He stopped the chap next to him, just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. I've simply clamped and blah 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 blah. Ah, Beppo! This trial has to continue so I can get to the bottom of this corruption. Not guilty, I say. Scoundrels, stabbing that poor man on the floor. It beggars belief. Alright, pick you, and pick you.
Objection.
Those two statements are completely contradictory. What? Explain, counsel. Post haste. Oh, dearie me. I was only knitting a jumper for my other half. My, you must be really tall then. What's all this claptrap? What's contradictory mean, I ask you? We've heard from more than one witness. They allegedly saw the actual moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3. Whoa! Can't you see I'm busy here? Yeah, I see you're trying to draw Excalibur from the judge's judge's bench. How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it? Ah! Want to test me, do you? I guess you're the king of England, then. Like this! Stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up, just like the prim banker said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony. Quite true. Now then, juror number 6. Oh, is that me, is it? What can I do for you, young man? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam? Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it. It was like this. He stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so. Now don't move. Take a look at these two jurors. He stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. Well, I never. There. A stabbing in totally different directions. What? Bless my stitches. What a muddle. What this tells us is that there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses isn't telling the truth. Oh! But why? Why the dickens would they lie? I don't know that yet. But what I do know is that if the trial ends at this point, we may never find out. We may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen, in all good conscience? Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. I can't abide by people telling lies. The scales. I believe it. Hold it. Wait! Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him in his black suit. He's clearly some devious Eastern sorcerer using magic on us at all. Not that kind of game, sir. Not that kind of game. If I could use magic, do you really think I'd be putting myself through all this? Answer me this, Doc Jinx. Ah, me? What exactly is the problem? What of it if two witnesses have slightly different recollections of events? What of it? Let's say the Sherlock did stab the victim as he was sitting next to him on the omnibus, and this young dandy saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor, and then the Sherlock stabbed him again, and this old lady saw him do it. Well, what's to say it didn't happen like that, eh? Oh boy, that just isn't possible. Who are you calling a dandy, sir? Well, I should take this knife to you. Who are you calling old? Why, I should take this needle to you. They're ready to kill each other now. But could the foreman of the jury be right? Did the two witnesses see two different moments of the same crime? That's not possible. Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman... What is it, you dark jinx? Come on, out with it! What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. Due to internal hemorrhage, stabbed once. Exactly. What are you talking about, man? How can you possibly say that? You do realize that I'm only doing my job. As foreman of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So where's your evidence, man? That's what we want to see. I said that two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime. You say that's out of question. Show me some proof. Glad to. Some irrefutable hard evidence. As you wish. What? I'll give you the proof. It's out of the question the two witnesses saw the two different moments of the same crime as proven by the autopsy report.
Take that!
This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen. Only once. Hey! Only once! It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely one time. Which means these witnesses can't possibly have seen it happen two different times. Alright, I concede defeat. That was quick. Wait, that means 4 jurors are leaning to not guilty. We've done it, Mr. Naruhodo. We won! What are you playing at, you dandy fool? Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me. We had a consensus. I said shut your trap. I know a lie when I see one, and if the chap never dares to cross the threshold of my shop, I'll take this razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head. Please tell me he's a barber. Well, in a quite remarkable turn of events, the defense's summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice, and I will be right back. Alright, we're back. Flip the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty, 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jury for me to adjudicate. The trial must continue. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places, and I call upon all of you to continue to preserve the truth. So, Lord Van Zieks, continue to substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please. Geez, another one? Are you really supposed to be doing this in the court? Someone really knows his wine. All that just to crush it, having savored the rich aroma of the calming contents of this hallowed chalice. Are you alright? You need to go to the hospital. It may seem crass to crush it to dust. Pray forgive this discourtesy. Lord Van Zieks! Is it cold in here, or is it just me? As your antiquated tone no doubt says, the prosecution may not speak during a summation examination. So I honor the deathly silence and listen to the charade. It seems I overestimated the intelligence of the jury. That was rude. Well, no matter. There is nothing so hard to prove as a self-evident truth, it would seem. No, and why else would we grace the courtroom with our presence after all? So, let us proceed to the next round of battle. Bring forth the witnesses once more! I'm going to laugh my ass off if that actually hit the defense in the head, just like Frank saw it. Witnesses! I trust you had the summation examination we just had to endure. Yes, sir, that's a good. Yes, that I did, sir. Of course I heard it. Oh yes, sir. I heard it. You, sir, are the end. Coachman, I believe it's Beppo. Yes, sir. My lord, sir. If it transpires that in your previous testimony you were attempting to veil the presence of a fifth passenger in your omnibus, you will be found guilty of perjury. You advise to bear that in mind, sir. Oh mio Dio. Now then, witnesses, I hereby call on you to testify before the court again. You will explain the various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense's summation examination. Various misgivings. I only carried 4 passengers that night. I swear it, but well, I for one was told I had to pay 5 pence for the bus. He fiddled us on the fare, he did, and then I saw that blood-curdling sight as well. It's all too much. Are you alright, sir? You say you're a hat maker, but we all know that being a hat maker isn't without its drawbacks in this time. It's why we get the term mad as a hatter. I'll tell you, I saw McGilded stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands. Oh yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. I think so, yes. Counsel, make sense of this for me, please. The phantom fifth passenger conjured into existence by my learned Eastern friend never existed. The confusion has arisen from the coachman's sly little cozenages. Beppo, explain yourself! I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster. The guild fares 4 pence across the board. You know that! Am I to understand you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare? It is a cold, and the rain lasted a run of the days, always half empty. You've been dishonest, coachman. I'm sorry. You're a disgrace, Beppo. A disgrace. And your selfish actions have brought dishonor on the entire guild. If I may, sir. I had to pay 10 pence on the bus just last week. What? 4 passengers at 5 pence each is 20 pence. I've done the arithmetic 10 times already, but I can't make the result come out differently. Now that figures. Well, it would appear that one of the aforementioned misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, if you please. We've already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. I see you intend to continue the parlor games. Absolutely. Alrighty. Alright. Earlier, you testified that you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Yes, that's right. And you said the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding the knife as an ice pick grip. I suppose I might have, yes, put the cart before the horse, maybe. What's this? Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving the horses when I heard a scream from the seats on the roof deck. Oh, I expected that was me, sir. When I turned around, yes, I saw it through the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor and a knife was sticking up out of his midriff. Yes, and the fellow holding the handle was the famous man, yes. So in short, you didn't see the moment when the victim was actually stabbed at all. I really thought I did, but when I go over it again in my head, no, I suppose I didn't actually see the precise moment of the stabbing, did I? Struth!
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Now you listen to me! I know what you're thinking. He didn't really see the exact moment that the fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that? Hey? Are you Canadian now instead of Australian? Are you asking me or telling me? He's getting flustered. I might be able to extract some new information from him if I answer him cleverly. Could he have just happened to have seen the exact moment? No chance. Some days are like that. Well, it is a little hard to believe, certainly. Unless you spend your time peeping through a skylight on the top of an omnibus, that is. Peeping! I'm a respectable city banker, I'll have you know. And I know what I saw, and I remember it as clear as a Ballarat day. It was a grim scene, I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Oh, excuse me if I was getting a little hot under the collar there, my lord. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I can do that, alright. I'll tell you just how grim it was. You think I'd forget the sight of those blood-soaked hands after that butcher stabbed the man? Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Objection.
Blood-soaked hands? Well, I admit that soaked might be laying it on a bit thick. But anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. What? Here are the gloves worn by the defendant, Mr. McGilded, on the night in question. Oh yes, right. And there certainly does appear to be a sizable dark-colored stain here. But as I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. Right! What are you, a gopher now? In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent. Yay! But no! It can't be right. So you're the liar here, then? God! That's right, you were quite clear about it. You said, it was both ends. There is no way that cane is that flexible. Mr. Fairplay, if your last statement was a lie, it calls your entire testimony into question. You say you saw the moment the victim was stabbed, but is that really the truth?
Objection.
It was a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yes, it wasn't both hands, it was only one, but the fact remains. The victim's blood was on the accused.
Objection.
No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated he saw blood all over both hands. Which means there's a strong possibility this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. Hey! Why? Why? I'm a city banker, for pity's sake. My word should be the gold standard. Are you sure it's not the wood standard? I'm a gentleman, not some gutter snot. Upstanding members of society don't prevaricate. He's claiming to have no reason to lie. But is that really the case? Let's see, actually. Portfolio must contain all sorts of secrets to London's gentry. Well, it's not as though we know any of London's gentry personally, is it? Apart from a great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder. We will not find Mr. Sholm's name inside. Well, let's see what we find. Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? Not everyone in this country is well off. Look at this. You see the name here. Bruce Fairplay. Should that mean something to me? It does sound strangely familiar, actually. The witness testifying at this very moment. The banker. Why is his name in here? He borrowed 20 guineas, did he? The repayment date is fast approaching. This is just a coincidence, of course. Of course not. We had some evidence to explain why Mr. Fairplay might be lying that could turn the tide in this trial completely. Oh, we got that now. I've got evidence. My lord. Yes, counsel? The defense is ready to present evidence. By Jove! Are you sure? Yes, evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had a reason to lie in his testimony. Hey! Very well. I hereby call on the defense to present its evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court. Sorry, big guy. This is gonna suck for you.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owed money to Mr. McGilded. Yes, a list of innocent victims, crippled by the accused extortion. The point is, among the names of these debtors is your name, Mr. Bruce Fairplay. Hey! What? Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused? No, well, it's barely worthy of being called a debt. According to this ledger, you owe 20 guineas. Not an inconsiderable sum of money, I wouldn't say. Hey! Well, but what of it? Let's suppose Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. What would become of your debt in that case? And these documents state that the loan agreement is forged between two individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts which were owed to him would be annulled. They would cease to exist. Cease to exist? Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to have seen something you never in fact saw, in a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 guineas to the defendant? Good! Hey! Order! 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 Mr. Bruce Fairplay! Yes, my lord. Let me ask you again, and be aware that your answer may have most serious implications upon your future, sir. Did you or did you not see the precise moment in time at which the defendant is alleged to have thrust a knife into the victim? Your silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony. Alright, let's not make a melodrama out of this. Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch. A pinch? Well, it makes no difference. I definitely remember seeing blood on Mr. McGilded's hands. Both of them.
Objection!
And yet, only one of the defendant's gloves, which we have here as evidence, is stained. So you keep saying. I wonder if I might be allowed to speak, sir. Go ahead, Mr. First. Well, the thing is, I think I remember seeing it myself, as it happens. Seeing what? The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands. I think, yes. I'm almost sure that it was on both of his hands, not just one. What? What? Ow! It would appear we're going to need further testimony from all you witnesses. At this time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Yes. Mr. Naruhodo, this is good news. The course of the trial seems to have shifted slightly at last. Yes. I finally have a chance to turn things around here. What the witnesses really saw. There was blood on both hands of the assailant. I sincerely and distinctly remember that. However, I suppose you might say that I didn't see the exact moment that the stabbing transpired, if that matters. I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both of the attacker's hands with blood on them. I didn't actually see anything myself. No, not until I heard the scream. Anyway, the fact remains, there can't have been anyone else inside the carriage or we all would have seen. Well, lo and behold, in truth of fact, not one of you was witness to the crucial moment the crime was perpetrated. I apologize, my lord, but honestly, there was no one else inside that carriage, and the man's hands were covered in blood. Yeah, that much incriminating evidence is tantamount to saying we saw him undo it. That's really not what the testimony is about. Let us examine the interior of the omnibus once more. The victim's fresh blood is clearly visible on the seat, corroborating the witness's account. Excuse me. In other words, there is no substantial nor significant change in the facts of the case. Very well, your cross-examination, please. Counsel. Yes, my lord. There's blood on both hands of the assailant, and blah blah blah. Anyway, the fact remains, there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage or we all would have seen.
Hold it!
And everything you saw of the incident was through the skylight on the roof of the omnibus. That's right. It was fearfully cold that night. The glass wasn't frosted over. Oh yes, I remember. I was shivering. It was so bitter. Which rather begs the question of why the pair of you were sitting on the roof deck in the first place. Well, I don't know about this young fellow, but I couldn't enter the cabin. Why not? It was locked from the inside. I tried knocking, but no one opened the door. It was locked. That's right. That's a public bus service, for pity's sake. That's not what I call fair play. Yes, I had exactly the same experience. I tried knocking, but the gent inside just gestured at me to clear off. So I had no choice but climb up to the roof deck and look down longingly into the warm cabin below. Well, I can assure you, I wasn't just looking down, I was glaring. Long and hard. With those magnificent sideburns of yours. Jeez. And that's precisely what I can tell you with absolute confidence. And if there was anyone else in that cabin, I would have noticed. Unequivocal, I would say. I'm not sure about these two witnesses. Could they really have seen everything inside the cabin through the skylight? I wouldn't think so. Allow me to confirm one thing, Mr. Fairplay. You were riding this omnibus and witnessed the events in the cabin through the skylight and the floor of the upper deck. Is that right? That's right, yes. In that case, There is a portion of the cabin interior that would have been out of sight from you. What? By golly, really? Obviously, at this stage, you can't say for sure. But the possibility cannot be denied that at the time of the incident, there could have been another passenger in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus.
Objection!
Enough hypothetical meandering, my Nipponese friend. I'm gonna need to wash my mouth out every time I say that. The prosecution demands you substantiate your claims. After all, the scene of the crime is here, in the flesh. Very well, I will uphold the prosecution's demand. You will identify the area on this cross-sectional plane of the omnibus. Where exactly in the omnibus are you suggesting the potential extra passenger could have been situated? Here.
Take that!
Both rows of seats on the roof face in the direction of travel, whereas the seats in the enclosed cabin face each other, which means the visible part of the cabin, which passengers on the roof deck can see through the skylight, is as I've drawn here. Ah! That's right, my lord. As you can see here, the seat opposite the one on which the victim and his attacker were sitting is obscured from view. In other words, if someone had been sitting in that seat, it's quite possible that these witnesses would have been completely unaware of it. Yay!
Objection!
It's quite possible some phantom was sitting in there. Your Nipponese have a forbidding habit of obscuring the truth with ambiguity. I concur with the prosecution's rejoinder. In a British court of law, evidence is paramount. I cannot entertain this conjecture, counsel. That is, unless you're able to put a name to this mysterious passenger to whom you allude. Can you, Naruhodo? I honestly don't know. Who could it have been? Who could have been in the other seat, which was out of sight from the witnesses on the roof deck? I have an inkling. I understand, my lord. The defense would like to put forward a name. You're a fool. That response was a desperate attempt by a man who has no notions of his own limitations. How many of those do you have? A toast! To hard lessons not yet learnt. Let us not delay, counsel. The defense is still to name the passenger in the other seat. Ow! This could be it. It could be the chance I've been waiting for to turn the trial in my favor. On that night, on the night of the murder, the person occupying the seat in the omnibus cabin that was obscured from view was Magnus McGilded. This guy's 48? He doesn't look it. He's 52.
Take that!
The passenger in the enclosed cabin that the witnesses on the roof deck failed to see has to have been Mr. Magnus McGilded. Wait! Mr. McGilded? What are you talking about, counsel? That's the name of the defendant.
Objection!
You're wasting those. If I desecrate this chamber by smashing my hallowed chalice, do forgive the discourtesy. We'll find out your reasoning later.